to another edition of 805 Sports Talk, and we got a lot of football to get into this week, and we're going to start with Santa Maria's big win over Cabrillo. They moved to 2-1 with the 46-24 home victory, their home opener. Elliot, you were on hand for that victory. How did the Saints look in their first home game?
Actually, they look great. They did everything right. They did suffer a major injury on the team, but Blake Truitt, the quarterback, he ran for 195 yards on 14 carries. That's almost 14 yards per run. Robert Ruiz picked up another 118 yards on 15 carries. So they can really run the football. But on those occasions where they decided to pass, Truitt hit Jonathan Ramos with 3 passes for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they don't throw often, but when they do, I mean, he hit Ramos for 54 yards, a 26-yard touchdown, and a 35-yard touchdown. But Truitt, I talked to Righetti's coach. They're playing Righetti this week, and I talked to Righetti's coach, Ed Herman, and he says he's the engine that runs that machine. And Truitt's really matured. He really is the guy that's in charge of that offense. He knows it very well, and he's got this knack. He's really good at the tailback, Ruiz, Frank Lopez, Isaiah Garcia, running through the line. He gives them the ball, and he sees if the defense is collapsing, he pulls the ball back and he keeps it. If the defense is not collapsing, they're keeping an eye on him, he lets it go, and the tailback gets the carry. And he's really good at identifying that defense, and that is a key to their success early in this season. They're 2-1, and their defense has stepped up big. They had, I think it was 7 sacks last week against the 2 Cabrillo quarterbacks. They knocked Sean Wood out of the game. They held Cabrillo to 229 yards on the ground, but they got more than 100 of those in the fourth quarter when Santa Maria coach Dan Ellington pulled his starters, and it was the same with their passing game. The majority of their yards they picked up in the fourth quarter. So when the starters were in, they shut Cabrillo's offense down and really didn't give up very much at all until the end of the fourth quarter, where Cabrillo picked up 2 quick touchdowns to make the score close, but it would have been 46-10 otherwise. So Santa Maria was in control right from the start. The one thing that they've got to overcome, they played 3 games. Each of those 3 games on their opening drive, they have taken the ball down to the 1-yard line and turned it over. They fumbled it each of the 3 games. That's what they got to correct. That's the one flaw in their game plan, is if you're down at the 1, you got to hold on to that ball and get it in the end zone. But in the long run in this game, it didn't matter. Truitt just runs that offense masterfully, and Coach Dan Ellington has these kids believing in his program, and now they've done it long enough and have had success with it long enough that they know what they've got to do, and they go out and do it.
Yeah, you mentioned the Isaiah Garcia injury, and that's a big one, but it really seems like Robert Ruiz and Jonathan Ramos are there to step up. I don't think you can replace a guy like Isaiah Garcia, what he brings on both sides of the ball, but I know Ruiz and Ramos are both going to, really try to fill the void left by Garcia missing that game, and it's a big loss with the Righetti Warriors looming Friday night, and that's where, Lorenzo, you and I will be Friday night as the Saints host the Warriors. It's a non-league game, but it is a big one. I was on hand last year as Garcia helped the Saints upset Righetti 22-20. I think that ended something like a 20-year drought the Saints had against Righetti, and anybody who has some history here in the Santa Maria Valley knows that that's, a big game, maybe the biggest Santa Maria Valley game since the 50s and stuff like that. I know St. Joseph Righetti gets a lot of the attention now, but that Santa Maria Righetti game used to be huge, and I think it's coming back with Santa Maria winning last year, and this year's a little different. Santa Maria might be the favorites, but Righetti has shown some fight They won their season opener against Morro Bay. They were with St. Joseph for a little bit, but they got blown out at home against Dos Pueblos last week. Lorenzo, you saw Righetti a little bit. You haven't seen Santa Maria yet. What are your expectations for Friday's game?
Well, let me tell you this. Righetti-Santa Maria is the oldest football rivalry in the Santa Maria Valley. I mean, this is way before Righetti Pioneer Valley, Righetti St. Joseph. So, I mean, even growing up here, I mean, I knew a lot about Righetti Santa Maria, but so much momentum on Santa Maria's side. But I would not sleep on Righetti. I mean, I really thought that, I mean, if they had finished, like if they had played 4 quarters against St. Joseph, that game could have actually gone down to the last minute. I mean, I saw flashes of somewhat brilliance, but, you know, Ed Herman told me after that game, penalties did us in. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it is a rivalry game, so things might get chippy, but, I mean, I'm going to really closely examine how Righetti keeps its composure in this game, because I feel like if they keep themselves calm, they might have a chance against Santa Maria.
Yeah, I think it's going to be just as close as it was last year, just a 2-point game. I wouldn't expect it to be, you know, a bigger margin this year. So Elliot, what are you thinking for that game?
Well, Ed Herman told me that the team they lost to last week, Dos Pueblos, was the biggest team they've faced all year, and probably be the biggest team they will face all year. So he wasn't too discouraged by the fact that they didn't score against Dos Pueblos. But I'm looking back to the game they lost to St. Joe. They had trouble scoring there. I mean, everybody's going to beat up on Morro Bay except maybe San Luis Obispo. But they lost to St. Joe and they had trouble scoring. And you're going to see a swarming defense that really knows how to get to the ball. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think Righetti's going to have trouble scoring points. They're just learning the offense. There's a lot of young kids on that team. So I'm thinking Santa Maria's going to win it. You say it could be close. Last year it was, what, 22-20? I think it might be a little bit wider gap of like a 28-14. But I think Santa Maria's going to be able to post 2 wins in a row, and it'll boost the Santa Maria Saints program and maybe keep this new tradition going for not only this year but years to come. And Ed Herman's got to find a way to get his kids turned around. He liked the way they played. They're healthy. They don't have any key injuries the way the Saints do. And while the Santa Maria still has some talent there with Robert Ruiz, Frank Lopez filled in admirably, and you can throw bombs all day to Jonathan Ramos. So that's what Righetti's got to watch out for. Can their secondary handle Ramos, and can they stop Truitt and Ruiz from just running all over him? And the 2 of those guys had over 300 yards rushing last week. You know what's coming. The question is, can they stop it? And I think it's going to be hard for Righetti to do it. Don't think it'll be a blowout, but I think it's a Santa Maria win.
Yeah, and it's interesting, I think, the quarterback matchup. They're 2 athletic quarterbacks. I know Truitt likes to throw on the move and just move in general and run the ball. Giddings, we've seen him move out of the pocket. They move him around a lot. So 2 very, explosive athletic quarterbacks are going against each other. And I don't know if Santa Maria will limit Righetti the way it needs to. Then we have seen that they've allowed quite a few points this year. We know Santa Barbara put up 47 points. Cabrillo put up 24, but some of that was in garbage time. They did hold San Luis Obispo to 10. So that defense has to come to play because they have Jalen Davis. Isaiah Gayfield's a pretty good runner. Damian Robles is a tough runner. And that quarterback, Brandon Giddings, can be explosive, and that offense can be explosive. So that Santa Maria defense is going to have to come to play. I don't think the offense will have any problem at all putting up points against Righetti, but the Saints got to, come to play on defense.
And the one thing about Truitt, you said he likes to roll out. He does. But that can also work against them because he really likes to roll out to the sideline, deep to the right, and then throw to the right side of the sideline or the end zone. And if you know that pattern, then your safeties and your defensive backs can watch for that rollout, leave the linemen and linebackers to try to get through it, and if they can't, be in position to either knock down or intercept the passes. So it's not as though he telegraphs it. This is like an open secret. He's going to roll right if you see him going. Now, if you keep too much of an eye downfield, though, he's going to haul that ball in and just take off himself for a quick 10 yards, off the sidelines, line up again with a first down. So there's a lot of weapons there, but Righetti can stop him. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, so while the Saints were bouncing back from a loss, one team, St. Joseph, kept on rolling, and they scored a big win on the road in Ventura County, taking down St. Bonnie. We thought it could be close. I think, Lorenzo, you and I both picked St. Joseph to win, but I don't think we expected to win in the fashion that they did.
Yeah, and I'm glad I made that last-minute move to pick St. Joseph, but what an impressive victory. I mean, it's one thing to beat a Ventura County school, but I mean, you throw out records. St. Bonaventure, any victory against the St. Bonaventure football team, quality win. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that resonated with me on Monday when I went to the roundtable, Jim Chavala got on the microphone, and he had mentioned that it was 11 years since St. Joseph had beaten a Ventura County school, but in his mind, he doesn't just look at it as a St. Joseph victory. He looks at it as a Santa Maria Valley, a community victory, because I mean, every now and then you get those bragging rights about, which region has the best football. I mean, usually Ventura County tends to have the one up, but in this particular case, St. Joseph with a huge statement on Friday.
Yeah, we talked about some good quarterbacks in that Santa Maria Righetti game. I think Dino Maldonado might be the best quarterback in the area, maybe. He's definitely playing the best. What do you think the Knights' chances are against Bishop Diego at home Friday night with the way Dino Maldonado's been playing?
It's a deadly pick'em game for me because, I mean, one side of me leans towards Bishop Diego because of their fast start and beating up on a Division II team in Aurora Grande, but on the other side, I mean, St. Joseph's just brimming with confidence because it just happens they also beat a Division II team at St. Bonaventure on Friday. And I just feel like from an aerial standpoint, St. Joseph has the edge. I mean, with Dino Maldonado, it's not just him. It's pick your poison with the receiving core. Mm-hmm. We saw that receiving core against Righetti. I mean, Joe Miller, the new guy, Mason Bealey. You got Nate Guzman, who's more of the technician, also the more all-around guy. I mean, he has 4 to 5 guys to choose from, and Jaden Vargas as well, who's that versatile Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, we talk about the Santa Maria Righetti game. That's the matchup for the Valley, but maybe that the marquee matchup that's the Southern section is going to kind of keep an eye on is that St. Joseph Bishop Diego game, with Bishop Diego being the top team in Division 6, St. Joseph rising in Division 5. I think a lot of people are interested in that result, and I know I'm going to be interested as well. Elliot, what are you thinking about that game? Who do you think is going to come out on top?
I'm liking the way St. Joe's playing right now. They play a tough early season schedule. They take on all comers. And they want to do that so that they're really in fighting shape when the league season begins. And I think they're on a roll. I like Maldonado. I've known him most of his life, and he's really matured a lot as a quarterback. He's not the biggest guy out there, but he's got a lot of talent. And this is going to be maybe the best game of the week. It's going to be a tough matchup between two highly ranked teams, and it's at home though, and I think St. Joe might have a little bit of a home field advantage there. I think it's going to be close, but St. Joe's going to win it.
Yeah, I would pick St. Joe in that matchup. You mentioned the confidence, the momentum that they have, and I think they're going to win that one. I think they might win it handily. Bishop Diego is really good. They pretty much rely on John Harris, a running back, who's also a great defender. But I think St. Joseph has enough weapons to kind of counteract that, and I think St. Joseph's going to win this one and keep on rolling. Bishop Diego has beat AG and Napomo, but I'm not sure how great those wins look at this point. St. Joseph has that good win over St. Bonnie under its belt, so I think St. Joseph's going to keep it going. I wouldn't be surprised if Dino Maldonado has another huge game running that offense. I think he has 4 touchdown passes in each of his last 2 games. Jaden Vargas is a stud, 200-plus rushing yards against St. Bonnie. That's huge. So I think I would go with St. Joseph, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win by double digits against a really good, but I think they'll be overmatched Bishop Diego team. That's Friday night at St. Joseph. That's a big game. Switching over to 8-man, Lorenzo, you and I saw Orchid Academy last week. That was our first broadcast of an 8-man game. That was your first ever 8-man game. Orchid Academy came up with that 66-30 win. I thought it was a great game. We thought Orchid Academy was in trouble, or at least I did after that first quarter, down 22-6. But almost 60 straight points rolled off by the Spartans, and they win. What did you take away from Friday's game?
I love the atmosphere, and I also love the resolve that Orchid Academy had, because Doug May mentioned, going back to the roundtable, that when our kids were down, I called the timeout, called out my offense and said, hey, this game's not over. And right away, Darren Miller looked him into the eye and said, Coach, we got this. And sure enough, they did. I mean, Darren Miller was also right when I spoke to him during media day that sometimes when you miss a tackle, it leads to 6 easy points. And I mean, I saw plenty of that at least 5 times, especially on that quarterback sneak run that ended up being a 38-yard scramble for the touchdown.
Yeah, his running was certainly impressive, and some of those long runs that he did break off, but he also made some really good throws, and you know, threw a couple passes to Jared Sutton that were really good. Sutton was great, you know, just overall had that nice touchdown pass to his brother Donovan Miller, so I think Darren showed off both of his skill sets.
And we talk about statement victories. I mean, St. Joseph had a huge statement victory. This, to me, has to be one of the biggest victories in the young history of Spartans football, and you know, you've seen the numbers grow football-wise on that campus. So I wouldn't doubt in my mind that a victory against the defending D1 8-man champions is only going to spark more interest for Orchid Academy football. Hence why I'm starting to believe that in about 2 years they might make the jump to 8 to 11-man.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I would. I would. Remember, their enrollment is capped at 550 students, so their pool of available athletes is limited. Now that's bigger than Valley Christian, which has 20 or 30 boys that are available to play, but they're in Division II of 8-man, the small school division of 8-man. This is the large schools, and Mojave's the defending champs, but you can't forget that Orchid Academy is a playoff team themselves. So they were not like a bad program looking to be an upstart winner. This was a good program with a history of success under Coach May, and this was a statement win for these guys. I picked them. I said they're going to win because Mojave can't keep winning. You know, my beloved New England Patriots can't keep winning, but they win enough. And Mojave's like that. They can't win them all, but they win plenty. And I just thought at home on the turf field, Orchid Academy was going to be able to win it. I didn't think it was going to go the way it did. I thought it was going to be a close game, and they would go back and forth, touchdown, 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 and one big mistake could lead to the winner. But it was an impressive win for Coach Doug May and his kids, and he's building that program over there. You know, he came from Righetti. He's got the 11-man background, and he's got some coaches with him, assistant coaches that he gives all the credit in the world to. They come up with some good offensive schemes. They've got a good defense. Needed a good defense this last week, so you know, more power to them. I think they're a great little 8-man team, and I'm the guy that goes to most of the 8-man games. So now you guys got to see how much fun those games are. I mean, 66 points, that's nothing. The 66 to 30, that's not really a blowout in 8-man because they can score so many points with the you know, the big gaps that they have on offense, the big gaps on defense. If you can just get through that offensive line, you've got 15 yards, and if you can just make one good move on a defensive back, you can be gone. So they can have running plays that are 60, 70 yards all the time on that 80-yard field.
Yeah. And I thought one of the more impressive things just from that night was the Orchid Academy bleachers were filled with the Orchid Academy fans throughout the whole game. I wasn't expecting much of a crowd, but they pretty much filled those whole Pioneer Valley bleachers over there. So that's what I thought was impressive.
And
really
they stayed when their team was down by 16. So
yeah, so credit to the football team and those fans for, you know, sticking it out and supporting their team. That was a huge crowd. I was a bit surprised by that, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a huge crowd Friday night at Pioneer Valley once again, because the Panthers are going to take on Arroyo Grande, and I think this is one of the better chances that the Panthers have had in recent years to take down AG. So you know, I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers pull that one out. You know, Elliot, you've seen PV this year. AG's a bit down. They did beat Bakersfield Independence last week. What do you think the Panthers' chances are against AG?
I think they're good. Arroyo Grande started off kind of rocky, but maybe they've started to build some momentum. It's Mike Hartman's first year as the head coach there, former St. Joseph head man for many years, and then has been an assistant at Arroyo Grande. So he's taken over for Coach Goosen, Tom Goosen, who retired from coaching, but he provides a continuity, and now they've got something to build on. But the Panthers look good. I saw them, what was it, week 0, and I was impressed with how they were playing. Coach Ruiz's team They got a lot of talent. So I'm thinking this could be the year that Pioneer Valley breaks through and beats Arroyo Grande. You remember, Arroyo Grande and Lompoc have been the class of the Central Coast for a long time. And last year we could say that, you know, Santa Maria never beats Righetti, but now they have, and they could do it 2 in a row. This could be the breakthrough season for the Pioneer Valley.
And I think in this game, we're going to learn a lot more about these teams. We're going to learn just how good Pioneer Valley really is, but also how bad is it at Arroyo Grande. So that's what I look at. And, you know, here's the thing about the Panthers. Don't sleep on the Panthers special teams unit, especially Zacharias.
Yeah.
Yeah, Edgar Zacharias. I don't think many would question that he is the best kicker in the area, probably one of the best ones maybe since Garrett Owens. He's having a great start to his season. The Panthers are 2-0 and coming off a bye, and they take on AG, who is 1-2, coming off a win at Bakersfield Independence. And it wasn't a blowout for AG. You know, they had to really work for that win over Independence, which is really one of the lower teams in the Bakersfield area. But a win's a win, and they're headed to Pioneer Valley to take on the Panthers, and I think that's going to be a close one. Moving on to another team coming off a bye, San Ynez. They're 2-0. They're going to take on Napomo. Napomo's struggled 0-3. They have had a pretty tough schedule, though. You know, playing Lompoc, playing Bishop Diego, playing Pioneer Valley, which we mentioned is 2-0. I don't think Napomo is a cupcake. I think San Ynez should win this game, but I think it might be a closer one than people expect. They usually do play San Ynez pretty tough. I know, Lorenzo, you've been high on San Ynez. You think they're going to struggle at all against Napomo this week?
Napomo, to me, I mean, they still have that well-coached element under a veteran like Tony Dodge. And, I mean, I wouldn't doubt that maybe for a quarter or two they'll try to do what they can to compete with San Ynez, but I just feel like San Ynez has way too many playmakers. I mean, they're no different than Lompoc, especially at the receiving end. And you got all that size with Jasper Cadley, Gabe Pendergrass. I mean, two of the more unguardable receivers, in my opinion, that I've seen in this region, and certainly in many years at San Ynez. So I still feel like that this is going to be an easy Pirate victory.
Yeah, I think it might be close, maybe for the first half, first quarter, something like that. But you mentioned it, San Ynez just has way too much talent. They have a little bit of extra time with the bye to prepare for Napomo, so you know that would be a very shocking result if San Ynez doesn't win that one, and it would probably be a surprise if they don't win it handily. Elliot, what do you think about that one?
Tony Dodge always prepares his kids well at Napomo, but I just think San Ynez has too much firepower. I think they'll put up a good fight and be scrappy as usual, but I think I'll see San Ynez pulling away more and more as the game goes on, and San Ynez will post a big win. It won't be a blowout, but it'll be like a 35-14, 35-21 type of game, where San Ynez is going to have to earn its points, but I think they will do that.
Yeah, moving on to Cabrillo. Interesting start to the season. They're 0-3, but it's a big week for them Friday. I think they have a really good chance at a win playing a Templeton team, and you know, they're putting on a little special event for Friday night's game. Can you kind of bring us up to speed on what's going on?
Yeah, so it's Salute to Services now. This is something that Cabrillo has done every year, but the fact that Cabrillo is near Vandenberg Air Force Base and they bring in a lot of the Vandenberg Air Force Base kids into the high school, I mean, it has a lot of significance. But here's another thing to point out. Head coach AJ Pateras did a tour in the Army. I mean, I believe he was in Iraq, which I'll find out a little bit later, but you know, Pateras has that Army background, and he gets to experience this event for the first time in his coaching career. Not only that, the rest of the Cabrillo coaching staff either is active duty or they're retired. So, I mean, this still definitely holds a lot of merit, and I think that inspiration right there, that's going to fuel Cabrillo against Templeton.
What's your pick for that one? How do you think the Conks are going to do against the Eagles? Think they will get their first win?
I believe it. I mean, it probably won't be like an easy fashion. I think it's probably still going to be one of those like ugly contests where first two quarters there's a lot of mistakes, but then they clean it up. But you know, to me, this is the ideal week that Cabrillo can finally get AJ Pateras his first career victory.
Yeah, Elliot, you saw Cabrillo last week. They put up 24 points against Santa Maria. Did come up short. What do you think the Conks' chances are against Templeton?
Well, I'm not I usually like Templeton's football teams, but they're not impressing me at all this last year or two. I think Cabrillo's ripe for their first win. A lot of that'll hinge on whether Sean Wood is healthy and how healthy, because he got knocked out of the game and they were losing, so they kept him out as a precaution. And Jackson Anderson, their backup quarterback, who is not quite a co-quarterback because he's played in every game. He has a lot of experience, and he can lead that offense. But he's not going to be going up against the backups at the beginning of this game if he ends up having to start. But I think that the combination of Sean Wood and Jackson Anderson running that offense is going to be just too much for Templeton. I see Pateras getting his first win. They're home. It's going to be an emotional night. The military, the coaching staff's ties to the military, the kids are going to be pumped up to win this one, for the school, for the coaches, for the military. I just see that they're going to have all the emotion on their side, and Templeton is just going to be the victim, that they're the wrong team for Templeton. It's the wrong place for them to be Friday night.
Yeah. An underrated weapon that Cabrillo has is J.D. Jakowski, who had a really good game against San Maria despite the losing effort. But you know, when he gets the ball, I mean, he does have some wheels on him. He is a former cross-country runner.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I can't pronounce his name, so I just.
I hope I got it right.
Yes, it is one of the more difficult names to spell. Yeah. I'll tell you that.
All right, moving over to Lompoc. Pretty much business as usual with the Braves. 72-14 win over San Marcos. Interesting note about their next game is that it's on Saturday night at Santa Barbara City College. They're playing Santa Barbara High School. Sounds like it'd be a fun game to attend and cover, but it makes it a little difficult with it being on Saturday night over there in Santa Barbara. And the Dons are actually on the rise. They're ranked in Division 9. They're the 9th ranked team in that division. Good for them, but Lompoc's the 2nd ranked team in Division 3. I would think most of us are going to pick the Braves in that one. I guess the question would be to you, Lorenzo, do you think it's going to be close? Do you think it's going to be a challenge at all?
See what it says? I would say it, but I'm going to clean it up and say heck no. I mean, Lompoc's just way too superior. I mean, again, as I've been saying, this is the most focused, the most driven football team I feel like in this area right now. And it's funny because I'm sure Andrew Jones can look at the San Marcos tape, look at the 72 points, and one of the first things that pops up is says we could still be better. Yeah. There's still so many things to clean up on, and I wouldn't doubt that he's going to parlay that into this game against Santa Barbara. Now, I know that Santa Barbara High is one of those teams that's peaking, especially under J.T. Stone, who was actually a legendary quarterback in the Santa Barbara County region, but I still feel like that Lompoc just has way too many playmakers.
You think the Braves will be challenged at all by the Dons, who, as we said, are on the rise?
For 7 to 10 minutes, maybe. Once everybody gets a few hits under their belts, both offense and defense. Lompoc is on a mission. They're always on a mission. Under Andrew Jones, they are just tunnel vision, focused. Santa Barbara's a nice team. They could even stay where they are in the rankings with a close loss, or even a big loss, because it's Lompoc after all. It's like playing a college team against, one of these real strong, just pound it down your throat running teams. And I don't see Santa Barbara has a chance to win. I know my son is rooting for him. He's a graduate of Santa Barbara High School, but I don't see the Dons being able to. I don't see anybody until the playoffs possibly being able to knock Lompoc off. I mean, you can just pencil me in every week for a win. It's just how big a win until they get to the playoffs, and even then, until they get to the quarterfinals, semifinals. I think before they're going to really have to knuckle down, and that one of the things that can work against them is these big wins. You don't want injuries. You take your starters out. You give the backups a chance to play. It gives them valuable experience, which is good. But come the playoffs, you need your starters to play the whole game. And they could be a little winded come the fourth quarter. So that could actually work against them. And I've said this years and years because they always dominate through the regular season. So, but I just see they're going to do it again.
Yeah, so if you want the extra football game, go to one Friday night, and then you can head over to Santa Barbara Saturday night for the Braves game against the Dons. But if you want to stay home Friday night, we will be live from Ralph Valdivia Stadium at 6:45 p.m. as the Saints host the Righetti Warriors. It's going to be a lot of fun. These two teams played each other last year, and it's a close game, so I'm sure both squads are excited for this one, and I'm sure fans from each school are excited for this one. I'm sure it's going to be a packed house over there at Santa Maria High School, so remember, 6:45 p.m. at santamariatimes.com. We'll be calling the action live. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in to 805 Sports Talk.